Hi there, my name is Bibi Butler and I've been hosting the Painted Guru Summit, and today I have Shelley Clamour, who is a wonderful creative artist who uses arts in healing. And she originally started off as an artist who had things in galleries and whatnot and got some official training in fine arts school, and she slowly made her way into using arts as a way to heal other people and take them back to their hearts. So she is a counseling therapist, an expressive artist, and she supports people to just, get in touch with their deeper feelings, their authentic life visions. She does that through collage art therapy and spiritual practices, and she specializes in inspiring people to find their way into self-reliance and passionate, purposeful living. So she's created hundreds of expressive art journals. She's done some online creative and spiritual practices worldwide, and she's just full of lots of yummy, juicy creativity. So welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So your journey is really interesting to me. I'm curious, when did your art start to do the magic of healing and taking you to a new place inside? Can you kind of share that story?
Yeah. So, like you said, I was a gallery artist, and that was in my 20s, and I graduated. Specializing in fine art and interior design, and my goal was to be a gallery artist, and I was very perfectionistic. I was extremely concerned with aesthetics and how things appeared, and I was very self-conscious and perfectionistic, and just kind of living in my idealized self. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my daughter that my body started to awaken, my emotional body, because our emotions live in our body, and I started to cry all the time. So this perfect facade that I had was starting to crumble, and I'd be walking down the street and be on a street corner, and I would just start to sob uncontrollably, and watch TV commercials and cry, and I just knew my art had to change, and so I started to secretively draw these sort of little dark drawings in my sketchbook, and they were very sad, and all of the mouths were veiled over with some kind of, gesture, and but it was weird because it felt really, really, really good to draw them. And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, it was just right before my first solo show in a very high-end art gallery. I pulled all my work from the gallery, and I started to create spontaneously.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's when you began just doing the more intuitive art, because you noticed just that it was feeling a lot better and it was healing you.
Yeah, it felt so good to be honest. I felt like, I was in a marriage at the time that was not right for me, and I felt very dishonest in my life, and so it just felt so amazing to be honest, and I did it very secretively at first, and I made a mistake of showing a relative one of my drawings, and she said, "Oh, you must be very, very sad and angry," and I got so contracted, I thought, "Oh, I'm not going to show anybody these drawings," and then I just started to do more. I started to paint spontaneously, and after I had my baby, it really, really got wild. Like I left my marriage, and so I was a single mom for a time. And so I was alone in this house in suburbia with my baby, and she was sitting in the high chair, and I went and bought this old typewriter from a garage sale, and it only typed 6 lines across, and so I thought, oh, I'll just write kitchen poetry. And so she'd be sitting there eating her banana in her high chair, and I just wrote like reams and reams of poetry, and I didn't even know where it was coming from, but it was just really honest and raw, and I painted all night during that time when she was a baby. I was really on fire, and I danced in my living room, and suburbia mom gone wild, really.
Right, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I realized that it was preparing me for something. I think because it wasn't too long after that I lost a whole bunch of people in my family, 5 in a year.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad, my brother, my aunt, my cousin, and my grandfather. And so it was such a heightened period for me that, in a way, I didn't even really grieve at the time. I was so connected to some kind of a higher plan that, I was quite strong during that period.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
because the faith, that faith was there, so it was carrying you through.
Yeah, I was in touch with
crumbling.
something larger, and I think creativity can do that. It can be very transformative, especially when it's spontaneous, because you start to touch into something that's way beyond your learned limitations, you know.
Absolutely. And you're
Mm.
one of few who's brought that up, where it's almost, which is why I called it the Painted Guru, because
Yeah.
you open up to an almost mystical experience when you get in touch with that very authentic, honest creativity that feels so good, right? And now you eventually started working with other people and helping them heal through art. How did that happen?
Well, first I had to heal myself because I didn't stay in that heightened state forever. It was a period of about 3 to 6 months, and it was during that time that I met my current partner, who's my soulmate, very creative, brilliant therapist, and then I had to figure out how to come out of my conditioning. So I'd say from my 30s, all of my 30s were about sort of working through my pain and my shadow, my shadow stuff. My inherited sort of biological depression that kind of came down my mother, maternal line, and so I did a lot of daily practices during my 30s. I started a journal every year, and I wrote, 3 pages a day. A la Julia Cameron, the artist's way. I did 1 year. Every year I would sort of pick a modality or a medium to explore, and I just did a lot of really looking at my stuff. And so I did that for about 10 years, and then when I turned 40, I got the directive that I had to take the work out in the world. I couldn't just continue to create in isolation, and that's when I started my blog and started teaching in the world.
Yeah, beautiful. And now you work at a wonderful artwork studio.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about that, what you all do?
Yeah. So my 40s have been really intense. Like I started to get out into the world. And before I got to Artworks, I was a private art contractor. And I would, I've been really fortunate. Like it's really unfolded very neat for me in a way that I worked for a lot of government agencies, and I've been funded by um, different health authorities to run art programs. And this is just like coming out of my own process, like this was before I got my counseling training, and I ended up, when I got the artwork studio job, when I was really steady financially, I ended up studying counseling evenings and weekends during my full-time work period. But up until that point, I worked with other populations. So right now I work with older adults, mostly with dementia. And so I've specialized in teaching that work for the last, or facilitating that kind of art for the last 8 years. But prior to that, I worked with teens in jail. I worked with adults with acquired brain injuries, who most of them got them through, pretty severe addictions. And so I've really been with a lot of people this last 10 years. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, I'm curious, knowing that, what I've been asking a lot of the artists is to share some tips with the audience about things that they can do to get into that creative, intuitive space where they're being honest and they're being expressive and they're letting go of the critic voice and the comparison. What kind of tips would you tell people or share with them to help them get into that space creatively?
Well, it's really interesting because I started a blog. I don't know. I guess maybe 10 years ago. It's not up anymore. It was so vulnerable,
Right.
And so I just decided that I was going to be really honest. So I would create some kind of spontaneous work of art, and then I would post it up, and I would write about my feelings about it. And I was writing a lot about my time, struggling through. depression and my struggles to earn a living, and there was all kinds of, as a creative person, and so there was a lot of vulnerability. So maybe not everybody wants to do that. Prior to that, I was doing private journaling, and I think that you start sort of with yourself, and then you take it maybe to start to share it with one other person, and then you start to take it out into the world. There's kind of a process of honesty that feels right, As far as practices that have worked for me, I've tried almost every creative practice under the sun, but I find the easiest thing to teach, and what I do most workshops in my online practice focuses on spontaneous collage, because it's a really, really good method to kind of bypass that social self that wants to defend and appear good to other people, and it really gets underneath to the parts that you don't accept about yourself, whether they be dark, maybe dishonest parts, or parts that you're out of your integrity in. But it also gets to the kind of the golden shadow, as Carl Jung would say, the parts that where you hide your light, and you hide your magnitude, and you hide your greatness, because it makes people in your family and social groups uncomfortable.
Yeah. So can you take us through a couple exercises, like collage exercises? Obviously not physically, as much as we'd love to get our hands dirty and put a collage. But can you take us through a couple examples of
I've written a lot about it, and I'm also offering, as you know, a free course in it for the people who hear this recording. And I mean, spontaneous collage is really easy. I've made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of collages. And I still do. Like, I don't make them every day anymore, but when I feel really emotional and I can't quite touch what it's about, I will just sit down, and it's good to do it when you feel emotional. And so it's just, you can literally just choose one magazine, and I love National Geographic magazines for collage, because they seem to carry a lot of sort of archetypal, sort of larger images than maybe just like a fashion magazine where everyone's idealized and
lots of makeup and flowers and
yeah, I mean, you can do that too. You can use those too, because they do serve a purpose. But sometimes when I'm struggling with something uncomfortable within, the National Geographic sort of fit the bill for me. And it just involves just flipping through a magazine and looking for what has a strong emotional charge, and you actually just shut your mind off and rip out the pictures that have a strong emotional charge, cut them out, and slap them down in a really seemingly random, but it's actually very intuitive. And then just sort of sitting back and just staring at your image and starting to kind of read it or feel what it is. And I just find it's really, really profound. I often ask people in my therapy practice to send me a collage or something prior to when we talk, and it always reflects sort of what's up currently in their life. So it's a really easy, neat practice. And I came to it because I was trying to teach intuitive painting years and years ago, and I was just finding that it seems to be good for people who are on a spiritual journey, or understand sort of that it's okay to be spontaneous. But actually, a lot of people are afraid to be spontaneous because it might bring up stuff that you're trying to protect, right? So,
and it would make sense painting might be a little more daunting for people because they have to build the images themselves, you know what I mean? Whereas sometimes the magazine image is right there speaking to you. So it's a great way to get someone into that space,
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's very deceptively simple, but yet it's really profound. And I found for myself, after years and years of doing so many collages, is that I can start to kind of read my life in the same way, like read my life as a collage or an art piece. And so, my current, because I teach so much, and I work full time in the art studio, and I have a therapy practice on the evenings and weekends, and I write e-courses, and I started a sketchbook this year thinking, I'm going to do a drawing sketchbook this year, but I haven't even gotten to it. And so what I've taken to is just carrying around a little intuitive journal where I start to track my day almost like it was a big collage, and I start to look for patterns. And because I'm with so many people during a day, I listen to repeating things that people say, or how my inner correlates with my outer, and that's kind of how you would read a collage.
Yeah. And so, are you finding time to do your art at all, or is it a weekend thing that you get to do, or?
My art practice right now is so minimal. Like I said, every year up until this year, last year I managed to finish a mandala journal, which was very profound and very healing for me. And this year, my daughter had given me a sketchbook, and I thought, well, I'm going to get back to intuitive drawing, because I did several years of that many years ago and found it very wonderful. And I haven't been able to get to it because, just lots of great things happening.
Yes.
Like I've been contacted by a book publisher, and that might be writing a book this year. And so my work has been just teaching workshops, on the weekends, and therapy, and we're just working with people all the time. So literally the only time I really have to myself, and of course being with my partner too, and my relationship, and my daughter's grown and gone now, so that's she's not here anymore. I'm not mothering as intensively, but my private time literally is my lunch hour from the studio from 12 to 1.
Wow.
And I take my iPhone and I go around and I walk in these beautiful areas, because Vancouver's so beautiful and lush and green, and there's beautiful gardens, and I go around, and anything that sort of strikes my heart or my inspiration, I take a photo of it. So I've got just like an Instagram account and a Tumblr blog called Phototherapy. And
Beautiful.
So that's my practice this year, is phototherapy.
Yeah, so you have a creative outlet. And your art has become healing. You're healing itself and sharing that with others and guiding them through the process. That in itself really is a creative art. Just creating that space for people to feel safe and unfold and let whatever is on the inside out.
Yes, I love that. I like I say, I find just life being creative. Life is just creative.
Life is creative in and of itself. There's 1,000 ways to be creative. It's true. I'm curious too. When people begin to do this type of intuitive painting process or collage process or whatever the creative mode is, what are the benefits that you see for them?
Well, what I see is, which is so interesting, is that it's interesting because I actually work with people who are very creative, number one, but I also work with people who are wanting to be creative.
Right.
The people who've been creative for a long time, usually we start out and they send me a lot of art, but there's so much to be listened to within a conversation. And I'm finding just even the verbal exchange very metaphorical and very symbolic. And so we have transformational conversations just based on, how did your last week go, or how did your last month go, as if it was an art piece, and looking at it like a symbolic journey. But for some people, I find that because we're just so naturally careful and defended about how we talk about ourselves, the art kind of does the talking of the deeper self in a way that maybe the ordinary mind wouldn't realize, And so there's so much more, it's so much richer working with most people if they send an art piece in first, and then we talk by phone or Skype about the piece, but also about their life and how that correlates with the piece.
Yeah, that's very true. It's interesting. I remember when I first started getting into poetry after college, that was the feeling. It was like I found a way to say all the things that never made their way into conversations because they were bigger than just, hi, how are you? What did you watch on TV last night? Conversation in daily life can sometimes be so limiting. And I think art gives us that capacity to really express the things that words sometimes don't allow. And then you have opportunities, in your situations to make conversation a little more profound when you're using the art to steer from,
Yes, exactly. And it's, I see this out in the practical world, like taking this kind of spontaneous art teaching out into the world and working in the art studios that I've worked in, and I've worked mainly sort of my practical day jobs, in terms of the government funded work that I have done, watching different people create. Um, Always shows way, way, way more of themselves. And I've worked with mainly special needs populations, people who can't move a muscle in their body, or who can't even can't see, or who they can't talk anymore. But yet the artistic process just takes it up a notch into that realm of just a really full visual kind of communication that everybody kind of on a felt sense can understand. It's like a deeper. It's like you're looking at someone's artwork and you're having a really deep conversation just looking at it together, and you're not even saying anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole different way of communicating, and people really need that. And I think a couple people that have been on the calls have done a lot of work with artists creating in community, where you come together for little mini retreats and gatherings. And I think that's the power of that, because as they start to create these intuitive artworks, and as they begin to jump into the process and practice presence and boldness and pushing comfort zones, and they create these pieces, and then they get to converse and share with each other on a whole different level. And that kind of conversation is such food for people, I think.
Oh, yeah, it is. And I'm so excited about how, I don't know, how it's proliferating in the world, intuitive creativity. And
it is. It's like a revolution in the art world. It is.
Yeah.
It is definitely happening. And it's exciting. And what's so neat is on this summit, there's such a blend of people who just do intuitive painting, and some people blend intuitive and technique, in their own intuitive way.
Yeah.
And so it's been such a lovely thing to see. But there is definitely a soul coming back to our creative process that I find so beautiful.
Oh, I know, it's so exciting. And when I started doing my little secretive drawings with the veiled mouth, it was like 20 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. There was no books, there was no blogs, there was nothing about it. And I thought, am I kind of twisted? But this feels so good,
It feels so good. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's great.
And I didn't know, and I think at that time the only book on creativity that was out was The Artist Way, and so I ate that up. But it wasn't really, it was kind of expressing kind of how to go into a higher creativity and how to feel good, but it wasn't really talking about just pure painting whatever inside, spontaneous painting. And then I remember a book that came out during that period, one lone beautiful book shining in the bookstore, and it was called Life, Paint, and Passion by Michelle Cassou and Stuart Cubley. And I ended up going to a painting retreat when my daughter was a baby, and my dad, who, unbeknownst to me, had cancer at the time, he came to look after my baby, and she was still really nursing a lot. And so I actually missed the whole retreat, but because I was nursing her all the time. But I actually got a lot of painting in, and I had huge kind of openings through. I studied with Stuart Cubley, the author of the book, and that just launched I felt totally validated in what I was doing, and I was off after that.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely feel myself moving in that direction now. So I'm looking at you and like, that was very yummy.
I should point out that there's this heightened inspiration that I have totally loved, and it's been very yummy. And then also too, just I did spend a lot of years getting very, like, coming out of a very dependent marriage and learning how to be practical, and so bringing creativity into the practical realm has been a big journey for me too. And bringing it grounded onto this earth.
Bringing it grounded. And I think the idea of just helping and healing others and connecting in their creativity is very, very attractive, because it's such a powerful force. It changes the way you do everything, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you live your life. It definitely opens you up to a bolder, more alive way of living, for sure.
Yeah, I so agree. I feel I really do feel like this kind of spontaneous, intuitive soul creativity is really trying to come to earth through all of us.
It is. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's been a beautiful thing to see. So thank you, Shelley. You shared a lot of great, wonderful things, and I know you're inspiring the people who, are looking to find, there may be seasoned artists out there who feel like they've lost the soul of their art and want to, get back in touch with that honesty and that authenticity. And there's, I'm sure, people out there who've been inspired by this who want to start arts and healing and helping others get in touch with that. So it's been a treat to have you. I do want to mention to everybody that Shelley is offering a free gift, and it's an e-course on the art of emotional healing. It's called Seeing Your Emotions in Your Creativity, and you can just click on the link and the e-course is yours. Do you want to share anything about that, Shelley?
Yeah, this is just a really simple form of collage that can be done. I developed it because I'm a working person full-time and trying to fit a creative practice into my day. And this one literally takes 10 minutes a day. And it's just, getting up in the morning, making yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and sitting down and just doing a quick collage. And these collages are little. They're 5x7. They can be all torn out. And it involves tearing out 3 images and a word or two, gluing it down with a glue stick, and then just carrying your little book with you through your working day or your mothering day or your busy day or whatever you're doing, and just meditating on it and trying to get a sense of what it means for you, and then the next day creating another one. And it's it goes every you get a prompt or a writing inspiration every second day. So it's a 30-day course.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
There should be a whole series we do on the art of 10-minute creativity sessions, because it's funny, like I for me too, like I remember going through busy periods and I would just do 10 minutes of my art journaling at a time. Mm-hmm. And you realize like sometimes that can be fun too, because something has time to evolve and grow, and so, and in this case, just having 10 minutes, sometimes when you're moving quickly in the practice that you're doing, you shut down your critical thinking and you really just open up into a flow state. So it's kind of a fun exercise. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any final words to share with everybody before we disappear?
I think for people who are struggling with inertia and trying to move out of feeling down or depressed, I think creating every day is a good way to start to touch into those heightened possibilities. And then on the opposite end, there's those of us who actually can create too much and not be grounded and practical. So that's something that I've had to learn, because in a way, creativity can be kind of weirdly addictive too, because you get into this heightened state and then, you might not, pay attention to your bills or your dishes or eating properly. And so I really encourage balance. And that's something that I've had to learn, just that, be sort of, gently creative every day.
Great advice. Really good advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shelley.
No,
it's been a treat.
It's been a pleasure, Bibi. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye. I'm not done talking to you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
ExpressiveArtWorkshops.com